Let's do one more question.
Hi, my name is Darylyn Horn. I work with WWJ News Radio in Detroit. Stellantis is not an American-owned company, so how will you hold the CEOs accountable and help those people who were laid off?
Well, I think that while Stellantis is not an American company, they do business in America, so they have to actually follow American rules, follow American laws, and respect American workers. And that's what Donald Trump and I are going to fight to make happen. And I think it's very simple. The thing that we want is that we want to make sure that corporations that are operating in this country actually obey our laws. One of the biggest problems, right, and one of the reasons that Chinese firms are able to undercut the wages of American workers is they don't obey our environmental laws, right? We want clean air and clean water. But if a Chinese corporation is doing business in a very dirty way, that poisons our environment and destroys the wages of our workers. If they're not paying their workers a decent wage, they're undercutting the wages of American workers. We have got to become more self-reliant. We've got to protect our own country, our own people, and our own economy. And that's the Donald Trump plan. Now, let me leave you with a final thought here. And, look, I recognize that we've got just 12 days or, as we used to say in the Marine Corps, 11 days and a wake-up. That's how long we have. And it's getting down to the wire, and I'm getting excited about it, but it's also hard to believe we're so close to the end. Here's what I'd ask you to do. I'd ask you to think of yourselves as fighters, but fighters not just for a cause or for a set of ideas, and especially not for political candidates. I want you to think of yourself as fighters for your fellow Americans, because there are a lot of people here that aren't at this rally, but a lot of people in the state of Michigan that desperately need better leadership in Washington, D.C. I remember when I was a kid, and I was raised by my grandmother, as a lot of you know, because my mom struggled with drug addiction for a big chunk of my early life. And I remember, because Ohio gets not quite as cold as Michigan, but gets pretty cold in the winter. And I remember sometimes, if times were especially tight, my grandmother, I called her Mamaw, Mamaw would say, you know what, we're not going to turn on the heater tonight. We're going to throw a few extra blankets on the bed, and that's how we're going to get through this winter with our finances still intact. And I happen to believe that we have got the richest and most bountiful energy reserves anywhere in the entire world. If you work hard and play by the rules, you ought to be able to heat your home in a cold winter night. That's what we're fighting for. I've talked to mothers who have lost their kids to, their kid was 15 and took something under peer pressure, and then that child lost his life because a bag of marijuana or something else was laced with fentanyl. And so what would have been 20 years ago an innocent childhood mistake, you maybe wake up with a headache or a lecture from your parents, is now costing a lot of American children their lives. And I met another woman a few weeks ago who told me, she was a retiree, her husband was close to retiring, that they had this tradition where they would do steak night. For 40 years, they would do steak night every Friday night. And I'm not talking about going to a fancy steakhouse. I'm talking about going to the grocery store, buying a nice steak, and having that be their thing. And I think all of us know it's those little rituals with our family that actually make life worth living. Well, she stopped doing steak night last year because under Kamala Harris's policies, groceries just got too expensive. And so something that she had done that gave meaning to her family life for 40 years, she stopped doing because groceries got too expensive. And so over the next 11 days, think about what we're fighting for. We're fighting for that woman to be able to have steak night with her husband on Friday. We're fighting for a kid like me, for his grandmother to be able to turn the heat on when it gets really cold at night. We're fighting for American children to grow up in neighborhoods that are safe enough where they can make a mistake and not have it cost their lives. And the way that we are going to make their lives better is to give the American people a president who is fit to lead this great nation. Vote Donald J. Trump, and make sure your friends and family do too. God bless you all. Thank you for having me. I'll see you soon, Michigan.